Welcome to Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on the show is quite simple: shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we are honored to have just traveled to Vermilion, Alberta to sit down in person with Robert Snow, councillor for the town of Vermilion, Alberta. Now, the picturesque community of Vermilion boasts murals, unique gardens, and an outdoor community oven, all part of their award-winning brand, New Ideas for Living. Their community hosts a vast array of year-round activities in their parks, walking trails, and outstanding recreational opportunities, including the Vermilion Provincial Park, adjacent to the town boundaries. Now, Vermilion's energetic arts and culture scene includes many festivals and events, and the Good Life Institute will always ensure something is happening in town. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me, and B, thank you so much for sitting down with me in Vermilion, Alberta. Before we get started, you know this, the first question that always comes out of my mouth, and you're no exception to that question. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Rob?
Yeah, good question. Before I start, thank you for coming all this way. I appreciate you coming up to our town. Sense of duty, that's a great question. And I guess my whole life I've kind of looked at, we can either just grumble about the issues or be the change that we want to be, right? And so from a young age, being raised in Toronto, I would go down and help people on the streets and just do my part there. And then as I got older, how can I progress this? And I moved to Alberta, and there's not a lot of, well, now there is a lot of homeless people, but when I moved here, there wasn't. And EMS and being a paramedic kind of fit my model of values in life and kind of do unto others and all that, right? And so went and became a paramedic, and just felt a sense of humility and pride in serving the people of this great province and this great community. And so it's really been instilled in me, probably from my mother. You know, honestly, that's probably the political answer, but it's also the truth is my mom served, and that's where not in any service. She just served. She was a servant heart type person. And yeah, so
can I ask a very blunt question?
Absolutely.
Because you jumped over a big part of the story here.
Okay, I
Born
do
and
that.
raised in Toronto, did not realize that. Thought you were an Albertan boy.
I hide that.
Trust me, I hide the fact that I'm from Ontario too, so don't worry about that. So how does someone choose Vermilion? What was it about Vermilion for you that went... Because I'm assuming, were you older? Was it your family that moved here? How did the Vermilion part of the story come about? Because you just said went from Toronto to Vermilion.
Yeah, no, very good. And thank you, because I do jump around. So I'm going to back it right up to Toronto. 19 years old, told my mom, hey, I think I'm moving out west for a year. And I told her that 3 weeks before I left. So
you're leaving like a week from now,
yeah,
right? Because it's only been a year since you moved
out
here.
Yeah, right. And no money in my pocket, just kind of packed up and moved out for the adventure. And as many adventures go, I met my wife, now wife, and stayed. But we were living in Edmonton, and that's where we were, and we were involved in Edmonton. I was a carpenter, and just back to that point of serving, I wanted to do more than just carpentry. Carpenters are great. I love being a carpenter and being involved, but took my medics school, and back then there wasn't no internet, at least not accessible internet. So started flipping through the phone book and flipping through all of the different phone books in the communities, see what services we're hiring. Vermilion, which I thought was Vegreville, like most people. And so we came out here in 2000 from Edmonton, and I started working here as a paramedic and just fell in love with the community, right? You know, our son at the time was a year and a half old, and just thought, like, Edmonton's great. Know anyone watching from Edmonton? I love Edmonton, but raising a son in a small community where we didn't at the time lock our doors, left the keys in the ignition, like that's how we got here. So yeah, I went from
you literally, it was just serendipitous that you opened up the Vermilion Yellow Pages almost and said, "Oh, there's people looking for carpenters out in
Actually, paramedics.
paramedics."
Yep.
And
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So I called up the service at the time.
Could we be having the same conversation hypothetically if you would have opened like the Edson Yellow Book and they were
You might
looking
be interviewing me in Edson. Yeah. I started through. Well, I will be
Had
very
you known of
honest.
Vermilion, like you joked that it was like the Vegreville. You thought it was Vegreville, but
No idea.
you'd never been out here. So
I
you
am-
women a chance, which is kind of the Vermilion story that a lot of people come here,
Yeah.
not really knowing what it is, but then they
Yeah.
fall in love with it.
Then they fall in love with it, and that's absolutely it. Like I raised in Toronto, moved to Edmonton City all my life, right? So to move out here was a big chance. My wife's from the city; she was raised in Calgary and then moved to Edmonton. And but that is the story of Vermilion. You know, there's people that are rooted here and from here, but as you go around town, and I know you went around town today, you see a lot of people that actually aren't from here that now call Vermilion home. And to the point, Vermilion wasn't the first one in the phone book that I looked up. I just alphabetical.
But it was the best.
It is the best now. I was going alphabetical at the time, so
So you had Youngstown,
Yeah,
and
so-
I'm just trying to think of another Y or
yeah. But you know, once I got here, yeah, it is the best in my opinion. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to do business. As a counselor in a small community, we obviously are part-time, so I actually work in the community as well. And yeah, it's
So you move out to Vermilion, and then time passes, I'm assuming, because I'm assuming you just didn't move here 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You move here,
yeah,
you start a family, and then almost 4 years ago, to the day almost, you decide, or you're deciding, I'm going to put my name forward to become a counselor
Yeah.
for my community. Had you had any interest in politics prior to that? Were you even paying attention to what was going on at Town Hall
Yeah.
prior to getting involved?
that's a great question. So I'm going to give you the very short answer, and then I'll go rambling on about the backside of it. The short answer is yeah, no, I had no interest. I didn't even think of politics. I not even on the radar. But going back to that concept of what gets a person to serve and what's behind the heart of it and all. My time as a paramedic was coming to an end. So I actually served in Vermilion as a paramedic for just about 22 years. And in 22 years, you see a lot of things, right? So I had to step out of that role for my own for my own well-being and for my family's well-being. And so I was going to retire. Become a photographer, and got myself a fancy camera, but realized I actually like serving this community. And I believe in the values of this community. I believe in my neighbors and the people around me. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to run for council. And I put my name in, and I simply did 2 posts on Facebook. I said, here's why I'm running. I want to serve my community. I want to be a part of it. And here's my values. Here's what I believe Vermilion stands for. And that's community. That's working together. That's being open and transparent. So if you believe in that and you believe in me, I hope you vote for me. And that's all I put up. And here I am.
You are,
Here
3
I am.
years later.
Yeah.
Almost 4 years
Yeah.
later. Okay, so there's a few things I want to branch off here.
Yeah.
I want to start with this hypothetical.
Yep.
You decided to put your name forward.
Yeah.
You get elected.
Yeah.
When you put your name forward, did you expect to get elected? Because
Yeah,
yourself
good
described
question.
that you
Yeah.
literally did 2 posts and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like for most people, that would be like, does he actually want to? Understandable in 2021. It's a completely different world that we're living in with COVID-19, with everything
Yeah.
else going on in the world. So traditional
Yeah.
door-to-door knocking is not happening. But
That's
like, you didn't run a quote-unquote conventional campaign?
yeah. And you know what? That's a great question, because I had a lot of people ask me that. Like, are you just running just because?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. That was the furthest from the truth. I actually, I expected to win. Equally didn't think I would, but I expected. Once I committed to it, I wanted to be a counselor, right? So it wasn't a nonchalant decision. I actually had a lot of long discussions with my wife about me running and the impact. Because if I'm running and if I get elected, then I'm serving. I'm not just sitting there, right?
And it changes the family dynamic, too.
Oh boy,
right?
does it ever! And so So yeah, that nonchalant, oh, I'm just going to put my name in. That's an easy, it kind of seems that way. But my values and my perspective then, not currently, but then, and I say not currently because now I've learned, hey, you should do a little bit more. But, and I shouldn't, I still believe this. I think one of the worst things a politician can do, and I know we have to do it, is promote yourself.
Yeah.
I think self-promotion.
The guy who's on the show about self-promotion of a municipal politician.
Yeah, right. And the guy that's sitting on the show with you promoting himself. So I respect that there's some irony in that, right? But I think at the core of it, I can kiss the babies and I can tell people I'm lowering taxes and snow's going to be removed, and I can tell people what they want. But in my views and my values, especially coming from that paramedic role, is wouldn't it be better if you had an experience with me and you told people about me and you said, hey, you know what? I met Rob Snow on the ambulance. He actually was very honest. He was very caring. He really wanted to help. That's why I think he should be a counselor. And so that's what I stuck to. So I say
Do you still hold that true today?
100%. Other than, and as we talked about, I'm running again. So the difference from then to now is the position I'm running for. Yeah. I think where I trusted people to spread my message in a new role, I think it's important that I go out and hear everyone's message. So in hearing everyone's message, there is a level of self-promotion, right? Or hearing not their message, sorry, their concerns. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to that,
Yep.
but I want to ask one more question about that first election, because I can remember the very first time I put my name on the ballot. And it is surreal when you walk into that ballot box and you see your name and you go,
man.
do I actually have to vote for myself? Like,
I might not have voted for myself.
So for you, for sort of a green candidate who really didn't have the political experience behind him, what was that moment like, seeing your name? Because I'm assuming you knew yourself and your wife would vote for you. So you get two
and my
votes,
mom.
and your mom 3 votes.
I'm not sure about my son, but I think he did. Yeah, no, it was surreal. Like, I was gobsmacked. Like, even that, going and seeing your name and being in the lineup and people saying, hey, we're rooting for you, you got our vote. If I can relate it to anything, and this is going to sound a little bit like I'm pumping myself, and I'm not. This is how I actually believe and have my values. It was like the first time I actually made a difference in saving someone's life on the ambulance. The first time I actually pushed the epinephrine and defibrillated, and that person came back to life, it's an overwhelming sense of humility. The fact that of all the people that are qualified, like I told you before we started, I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the most political guy. Of all the people that were qualified to do something, I get the opportunity to do it. And not any, celestial, divine. I do believe in a higher power, and there is a level of that, but that's not where I'm getting with it. It's just more, I get the opportunity to do this. So when I saw my name, I was actually taken back, and I was like, wow, like, I actually might have a chance to serve my community. And then the night of the election, sorry.
I was going to say, when did the honeymoon end? Because the climb is great, but the reality sinks in pretty quickly. Because for those who are in Alberta, you get elected, you have a budget to pass.
Yeah.
And budgets are not the most friendliest thing for any councillor, because that means you have to raise property taxes, that means you have to cut services. Traditionally, that first budget has already been done by the previous council, but you have to make your own stamp on it as well.
That is, the honeymoon ends pretty stinking quick. Yeah. So municipal elections, you get elected and there's a bunch of hoorah, and then you go and you take training and you meet all the new councillors and you're all celebrating, especially us. 6 out of 7 were brand new. We're all hyped up and excited and celebrating, and we go to Bonnyville for our training, and it's great. We're on a high. And the first thing they say in Bonnyville is, this is going to be like a rocket ship in learning. It's straight up. We're like, yeah, probably. And then the next day after that, we get to council chambers, and they're like, okay, we got to pass a budget right away, so we need to get you on that, and we need to start on a strategic plan. And oh, by the way, COVID started and we just had to shut down ice rinks and stuff. So there's going to be a few people upset. Honeymoon's done. now we're 20 years into marriage at that point.
So, okay. Then I can imagine you've come to the realization after almost 4 years in office that every decision you make is never going to be universally agreed upon.
No.
How do you make those tough decisions? Because you're one member around that council table. You need a majority of things to pass, and sometimes it doesn't go your way, sometimes it does. But at the end of the day, you have to make those tough decisions.
Yeah.
We talk about budget, we talk about closing of ice rinks. Those are tough decisions that people have come to rely on. How do you, and I say this respectfully, put your head down at night knowing you've made the right decision?
Yeah. And man, you got great questions.
I try.
And I appreciate it. I put my head down pretty good because first of all, to your point, it is just one vote, right? So one councillor, be it the mayor or council, doesn't make a decision, but you bring your point of view to it. And so what I've done is I've tried to actually not formulate a personal opinion, or definitely not an emotional opinion. So I try to look at it. People elected me, so I didn't get a lot of the votes, but I got 500-600 of the people that voted for me, enough to get me in. But I represent 4,000. So I can't just come with my opinion. I have to take into consideration, how's it going to impact everyone in this community? And so I try to do that. But to your point, you're never going to, when you're trying to 4,000 people, 2,000 people, 200,000 people, you're never going to represent all of them. So you try to represent collectively.
Who wins in that battle? Because collectively can be one thing, Robert's opinion can be another. And we always talk about Robert's rules because you're supposed to go into the council chambers not making a decision until you have that final call saying, okay, the yeas in favor, the nays against.
Yeah.
Who wins in that internal struggle? Is it always the people, or is it always Robert? Or is it a bit of both?
I would say it's probably never Robert, because and I see where you're going with that, but I just don't look at it a win for me. Like there's no win.
But you have a moral compass within inside yourself, and everyone does. Like I have my beliefs that I stick to.
Yeah.
But if I was sitting at a council table and I heard from 900 people out of 4,000 who came and did a delegation, said, we don't want this.
Yeah.
But in your mind, you're saying it's
I see what
good
you're
for
saying.
the entire community.
Yeah.
Who wins? Is it the vocal people who came, or is it what you believe is best for the community?
What I aim for is what's best for the community.
Good for you.
I've always, sorry.
No worries.
I've always said this. I shouldn't say always. Since I've been elected, I've said this often. There's a loud minority and a quiet majority. And the loud minority will always tell you the quiet majority is on their side, but it's rarely the case, right? And so I try to listen to the people that, my wife's the best example for me. She's much more intelligent than me. She easily should have been the counselor. The only thing she done got going for her is I don't mind getting my face out and things. And she just likes being in the back, quiet, doing. And I think our community and communities across this province are full of those people. And those are the people that at the end of the day have a very important opinion, but it doesn't get out there. So, and that goes back to getting out and in the future, hearing from people, right? So in any future campaigns, just listening and hearing to what people are saying, because the loud minority will always let you know what they're thinking.
There's the old adage, and I don't know who said this first, and I apologize for those who actually said it. Please tell me, because I'd really like to know and credit this person. There's 5% of the population that will always be vocal.
Yeah.
There's 15% of the population that will be vocal, but they'll be watching what the 5%'s doing. And then there's 80% of the population, as long as my water's turned on, my garbage is picked up, I really could care two craps what's going on at Town Hall. It becomes that apathetic nature as well, because in my conversations with not just people across Alberta, but across Canada, municipal governance, while the closest, is the most apathetic.
Yeah.
how do you engage with people in Vermilion, or are
Yeah.
you finding people being apathetic, or are they wanting to tell you what the issues are? And I know
Yeah.
the old political saying is you're going to tell me that depending on the issue, they're going to talk to me. But on a good day, how many people are in your council chambers?
You know,
That's a lot of questions in one.
no,
I
and
apologize.
I think it's funny because I literally, in preparing for us chatting, had that 5:15. I literally was like, because you're
true.
bang on the money, right? It's absolutely true. When we have issues come up, be it snow removal, be it taxes,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Breaking news here.
Yeah.
Snow removal
Snow-
is a big issue in
right?
this town.
Go figure, right? It's unique, no, but the majority of people are apathetic.
Yeah.
They're not going to be one way or the other. And so what the challenge I find becomes is social media, right? Because social media, then that 5% that we talked about and the 15% listening to them, that 5% now represents like they are the 80%. Because they're loud and now they have a platform, right?
But they have a platform, and I'm going to just play a little devil's
Yeah.
advocate with you. They still have the right to have their opinion.
100%.
Do you listen to them?
100%. So it doesn't matter how disgruntled a person is. It doesn't matter if they're the 5% that's loud. It doesn't matter all the things that we've been talking about. At the end of the day, they are actually no different than the quiet majority. They're no different than the 80%. They're actually a resident in our community. And honestly, if they vote or don't vote, it's irregardless. We represent the whole community. So even if somebody's on social media and they're saying, oh, Councillor Snow this or the town of Vermilion that, they have the right to say it. That's our God-given right in this country. We have the right to speak what we feel in respect. And even if it's disrespectful, again, it goes back to how we respond, and how I respond should never be that emotional response. It should be taking what they say, going back to that collective understanding that I serve the community. Okay, what can I mine out of their message that has value? And we make joke of the snow removal because that always is a topic every year. And so Mrs. Snow complains about the snow removal in her alleyway not being done quick enough. And instead of just saying, man, she always complains, sorry,
I was going to
sweetie,
say,
I love you.
I feel like you're throwing your wife under the bus here.
I'll pay for it. But better than saying
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary. It is our 30th. So better than saying Mrs. Smith and then all of a sudden Mrs. Smith calls me,
Yeah.
right? But instead of saying, man, that resident complains all the time, they don't know what they're talking about, stopping and saying, is there some parts of what they're saying that we should be looking at? Is that Mrs. Snow or Mrs. Smith or whoever, an elderly person that has a smaller car or uses a walker? Is it something that we've just missed or neglected? So we should always take everything, regardless if it's offensive or not, take it at value and say, what can we do out of this to do better?
So I'm just cautious of time here. I'm
Yeah,
just looking
I
at
told
the
you
time
I'd
here.
ramble.
No, but I'm good. But I want to add one last
Yeah.
area before we turn to the town as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking back on the last 3 years in office, I say 3 full years,
Yep.
3.5 years altogether. What piece of advice would you wish your younger self would have known getting into this role? Because you've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't need to get into
Yeah.
what's gone on, but you've gone through a lot as a councillor, as a community, as a town. What would you wish you would have known prior to getting involved in this position?
Sit in on council meetings, right? And
Sounds so small, but it's so big.
it's so big, right? Because as you alluded to, we had to go through some stuff, and even personally just learning all these roles, simply sitting in and seeing the process and learning that process and hearing some of the challenges that the current council at the time had would have been huge. And hindsight, that's the biggest thing. There's obviously a bunch of little things, and I feel like that's probably the box generic answer as well, but probably is because it's the most relevant answer.
Okay. So I'm about to do a preamble here. So just
Yep.
you know my preambles. So just
Yep.
bear with me. This is a conversation between the councillor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not direction of council, not a policy of council. This is his opinion and his opinion alone. Now, what he says may line up with what's going on at council, but at the end of the day, it's still his opinion. Now, I do also need to add this part into this preamble, and it's something new, but the councillor has announced that he will be running for mayor in this upcoming election. So I want to put on the record for any mayoral candidate in Vermilion who is putting their name on the ballot this term that want to appear on the cross-border interviews or the municipal affairs show, please reach out to us in the emails in the show notes below or on our website, Cross-Border Interviews, and we will certainly gladly have you on the show if you wish. We can't run around and find everyone, but if you want to come on and talk about the issues that are going on in Vermilion, you certainly can. Getting back to the original question, preamble, again, this is the councillor's opinion, and he is one vote on that council.
Is this also where we say the safe words pineapple?
Yes, the safe word is pineapple if the councillor has an issue that he wants to go back on. Okay. Councillor,
Yes.
in your opinion, as of recording this at the beginning of May 2025,
Yep.
what do you see as the biggest challenge facing your community today?
That's a great question. There's a few, but the biggest challenge I would say is housing.
Okay.
We need housing. Our community and our economic development manager and residents, they've rallied together. We got some new businesses coming in, got new industries, but we are locked between a highway and a river, and we need more housing.
Okay. So there's a lot that I can pick up on there.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a few municipalities in this province, in this country, who are in the role of building housing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, you should never assume, but I would take a wild guess that says Vermilion is not one of those communities.
No.
How do you do that then? Because you're in charge of the infrastructure. The infrastructure that's below us right now, the water,
Yeah.
the sewer, the wastewater treatment facilities, the roads, the pipes that need to get to all these houses. Developers need to build those houses.
That's right. Yeah.
Zoning needs to be put into place so developers can come in. Incentivization needs to happen as well. How has this council helped incentivize builders to come out from Lloydminster, come out from
Yeah.
Edmonton to build these houses? Because, and I'm going to just caveat here, I'm assuming you don't need just one or two houses. You need 20,
Yeah.
30 apartments.
That's right.
Townhouses. How do we solve this issue?
Wow, eh? So we're starting off easy. No.
Well, I told you.
You know what? That's the $1 million question, though, isn't it? Because, I go to a lot of these conferences and I sit on our economic development committee here. So I just recently went to our EDA conference in the province, and that's $1 million question. We have a lot of great communities and municipalities across the province, and we all want to grow. And we all want to be the next if you would, right? And be the economic corridor. And how do we get people to buy into our vision, right? It's like me saying, you know what, I want to be the best hockey player ever, and it's going to be awesome when I am. But how do we get there, right? Yeah. So the reality is, just like training for sports, you got to prepare and you got to plan and you have to have a strategy. And so in our community, one of the things we've done, we have incentivized bringing businesses into our community. There's some incentive programs for starting new commercial businesses and new industrial businesses, and it's been very successful. And I think you actually seen a few ribbons floating around here for our ribbon cut-ins. So we're doing good there, right? What we need to do is, to these developers, we need them to see that. We need them to see, hey, businesses are actually looking at Vermilion. So maybe we should be looking at Vermilion. Maybe we should be building houses. The other thing we have to do, and from day one, so, back to our previous conversation of me going into the role, as soon as I got into the role, I kind of started asking a lot of questions. What do we need for Vermilion? And growth was one of the big ones. So being my role as a CEO in another program and some business background as well, so then we need to have something to sell. We need to bring something to market if we're gonna make money, essentially. And my personal tag, has always been, we have the Highway 1641 corridor. So Highway 41 is unique. It, with a few zigzags, actually makes its way all the way down to Texas.
Yep.
Right. And so we do have a few of those in Alberta. Highway 36, I believe, does too. They all kind of bottleneck and jump on the same area. But in a province, and my sell to the province is, why would we stick to one corridor? Why are we sticking to Highway 2 when we can have Highway 36, Highway 41? And to boot, we have Highway 16. So yeah, we have Highway 1 going across Canada, but 16 catches a good chunk of Canada. Let's maximize that. And so that's been really my vision for this community. How do we maximize 1641 corridor, right? And when we start selling that idea, then developers say, oh, actually, you know what, that makes sense, because if we can get some of our supplies up to Fort McMurray and up to Cold Lake, down to Texas, over to Saskatoon, and then we kind of seem like a hub. And we have a great neighbor in Lloydminster, and we're not looking to compete with them, but that's the other part of...
Aren't you, though?
Yes.
Don't you have to?
Well, the answer is actually a little convoluted. Yes and no.
Yeah.
Right? Because yes, we have to make sure we grow and don't give everything away. But that's the other part of the takeaway that I kind of understood in my first year is, if we stand alone, an island in the ocean, we're not going to grow. But if we start going to market with a few friends and all of us are bringing the same wares, if you would, then the province and the federal government are going to start looking at us. So we need to really have good partnerships with our neighbors, the county, the city of Lloydminster, and all these other municipalities.
Well, that's where Alberta Hub comes in as well, right?
It's huge. Alberta Hub, and in this region we have the Vermilion River Regional Alliance as well, a smaller version of the hub. Not to take away from the hub is important to capture a larger group, and that captures our whole...
That goes from Athabasca all the way down to, I believe, Lloydminster, and I believe all the way up to Lac La Biche.
I want to say it goes all the way up to Lac La Biche, yeah. So it's a larger region, and that's where it's that convoluted yes, no, right? Because the wider the net now, we want to work with our neighbors, but we want to make sure that our needs are met as well. So having the regional alliance as well, with the closer neighbors coming together and saying, in our economic development, what can we do? And economic development, a lot of people always think businesses, houses, right? That's our go-to for economic development. It's hospitals, it's walkable trails, it's living, it's lifestyle, right? So businesses aren't like they were in the 80s. Like when I was in the 80s looking for a job, and you were just happy to have a job, right? Like I made $3 an hour and I was happy as could be, right? Now businesses say, how can we endorse a healthy lifestyle for our workers? Because healthy, happy workers work harder, right? And I can say that adamantly for my staff in my other organization, is when they're happy, they don't even look at the clock, right? They're just working because they're happy. And so...
But I'm going to kind of challenge you a little bit.
Absolutely.
For a second, because I think this is the thing that I need to put on the record. Because growth is needed. Mm-hmm. Housing is needed.
Yeah.
But, and this is the big but, development isn't free.
Development is not free.
The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, put out a sort of statement last year, 2024, so last year, that said, on average, for a municipality in Canada, it costs $107,000 to upload a house onto their infrastructure network. That's roads, that's sewage, that's water treatment.
Yep.
I don't know your budget as much as you do, but I'm imagining a $107,000 increase is substantial.
Yeah.
And you do not want to put that on the backs of the people who are here.
Yeah.
Development needs to come, but the developers I talk to say, I'm not going into a community unless they have all that already planned out and prepared, so that way I can just build the house and then sell it.
So, and absolutely. And this is a challenge. You know, we talked about the challenges in housing in Vermilion. This is actually one of our most immediate challenges, right? And so we're looking at expanding our town. We have a couple areas to look at. The one that's very public in our meetings right now is the Brennan North section. So that's but we have to expand our trunk line, our sewer trunk line.
Yeah.
Right. So sewer trunk line, $7.2 million. Well, I don't want to pay taxes on
Can I ask
$7.2 million.
what the general public would think of about a $7.2 million project and tax increase on their property taxes this year?
Well, the budget's already through, so if it had a went through that we're doing 7 you probably wouldn't be having this interview with me because I'd probably be
Trying to field off questions from the public?
be fielding off questions or hanging from the bleachers.
So how do you grow sustainably then? Because that's at the end of the day how municipalities have to grow. And I know sustainability is one of those words that you don't.
It's like a unicorn.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's also a word that, what does sustainability mean? Does that mean that we're going to grow into triple the size of our community in 3 years and it's going to take away what Vermilion meant to me when I moved here?
You know what sustainability means to me, and I'll preface it by saying we're not going to be there anytime soon. It means having a good plan, right? So what we do today at this council, we need to be planning for 20, 30 years from now. Not 4 years, not the end of our term, not the end of the next term. We need to start the foundations of Vermilion 2050, Vermilion 2060. Because if we don't start putting away now, that 7 million for trunk line now is just going to be 14 in 5 years, right?
But again, devil's advocate.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Because you don't want to put away for tomorrow when people are struggling today. And people want, and when I pay my property taxes in Calgary, which I'm assuming my property tax bill will be in the mail probably in the next few days, and I'm going to be so happy when I have to pay it this year.
We can talk about Calgary's taxes if you want. I'm okay with that.
Let's do that. But when people pay their taxes, they want to feel like they're getting something back. And if you pay for something for 20 years from now, it's hard to tell people you're helping grow the community for tomorrow, not today.
It's always that I was going to say adage, but it's not really an adage. It's always that idea of people are going to suffer today for tomorrow's wealth and benefit, right? Yeah. And to a degree, that has to happen, but it has to be balanced, right? So when I say we have to put away for tomorrow, it's not on the backs of the people today. We still have to. We have to be. This sounds so political, but we have to be financially responsible with balancing taxes, debt, and spending, right? Yeah. And spending also includes that putting away with reserves, but it's the reality. Taxes typically don't go down, right? But right? Shocker news. If you can
breaking
have breaking news
now
across your screen, that'd be perfect. But the reality is, we can't tax for 7.2 million. Yeah. That would be ridiculous. What we have to say is, and this is where our finance department and everyone comes together and brings, the smart people bring the ideas to bring to us, and then we discuss it and debate it and do what politicians do, right? But we need to have a plan that says a better tomorrow and a better today. So how are we funding today but putting away for tomorrow? And, it's always a challenge, and I don't want to bash provincial or anything else like that.
Oh, don't worry, I'm getting to that question next.
Because that's a challenge too, right? Because to your point, and maybe I'm jumping the queue here, but it becomes even harder when a lot of the costs are now downloaded on municipalities, right? So where we see cost cutting from the provincial government, and good on them for being smart and sustainable, but not good on them because who's it actually impacting? The exact same people. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only one taxpayer at the end of the day, right?
There is only one taxpayer. It doesn't.
They're struggling right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's about 12 different angles I want to take this conversation.
Let's do it.
But I'm very cautious of time.
Yeah.
But I want to start in a very, how do I say this? Very political way.
Yeah.
You're right. There's a lot of downloading going on in this world right
Yeah.
now. And not just from the provincial, but from the federal government
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
I think you're under that population threshold of you don't have to pay your RCMP bill quite yet. I think you're.
We got to pay.
Oh, you do have to pay.
Yeah, but not as much as the over 5,000.
Okay, so you still have to pay.
Yeah.
Okay. That digs into your municipal tax base. And when they get their property taxes, which we just talked to the Director of Corporate Services, they're going to get a bill that says, hey, this is what you owe us.
Yeah.
And us as in the municipality.
Yeah.
But the caveat there is there's a property tax line on there that says there's a portion that goes to the province, but we have to collect it for them.
Yeah.
And that's probably a substantial amount of the bill compared to what it would have been without it.
Yeah.
But no one looks at the line.
Nobody-
They
nobody
look
looks
at the
at-
final number.
Yeah.
How do you tell people we're trying to make it easier for you to live? We're trying to make things,
Yeah.
make tough decisions, but the province is downloading
Yeah.
on us. The federal government is downloading on us, and that means we have to make the tough choices. And as the closest to the people,
Yeah.
we know you can get to us rather than their MLA or their MP who's in Ottawa or Edmonton doing
Yeah.
the job.
That's right.
You pass a budget, you're in the grocery store that night.
Well, you see them, right?
Yeah.
And that's a great question, and I'll probably ramble a little bit on this
Go
one
for
too.
it.
So, to your point about that tax bill, absolutely right. So last year, this council's been very prudent in saying we understand what we're told we need to tax, but what can we get away with?
Yeah.
Because in the sense of keeping it cheap, not higher, obviously, should preface that. And we've worked very hard to keep it low. And so last year we were at a 4.1 increase, right? Not this current year, last year. And the tax bills go out and I get a bunch of
So
calls.
4.1, and I just want to clarify this. That's provincial and that's the education and the property taxes combined into one 4.
No, that's
That
our,
was just the,
that's
that's just the municipal
this
portion.
municipal portion.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah,
double
yeah.
check because
So 4.1 from our municipal taxes, right?
Okay.
And then I start getting a lot of phone calls. Hey, you guys said it was 4.1, but my bill is 15.9, right? And so what we learned from last year to this year is exactly what you said. People don't look, they look at the bottom line, right? And I do it too. We all do it.
Yeah.
So our administration's done a great job this year. They've taken our feedback, which we've taken from our municipality, and they've put on sessions to educate people and say, hey, you know what? Did you know we pay 240 plus thousand for our CMP? Did you know we pay 200 plus for libraries? Do you know we pay requisition on the lodge? And all of that's in your bill. So that's not actually money going to us, the municipality. We actually, and this year we're 3.9, we actually are just asking for 3.9 because we do have to shovel the roads, right?
Yeah.
And so we're really trying to get that message out there. Equally, you never want to bite the hand that feeds you, and the province is a hand that feeds us, but you also want to be fed.
But at the same time, and I'm gonna throw this
Yeah,
bone
do
as
it.
far as I possibly
Yeah.
can. I was in Edmonton 2 months ago
Yeah,
when the Alberta municipalities held their MLC convention at the Edmonton Westin. And I know Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal
Yep.
Affairs, was there, and he said, quote, I'm not paraphrasing here, but quote, get your residents to contact us about the property tax increase.
Yeah.
Best thing I
way.
could ever hear.
Yeah.
So if you have an issue with your property
Absolutely.
taxes that's above what the town is telling you, contact your provincial MLA.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I say I was going to ramble on a bit, I was actually going to bring up that same conference because the premier was there.
Yep.
And an elected official from one of the municipalities said, do you know this is on our bill and this is actually your guys' bill? Why is it on the municipality's bill? Why do we have to collect your money? And this is paraphrasing. I don't have as good a memory, but essentially it was like, you know what? We never thought of that. That's something we got to look into. So hopefully, again, talk to your MLAs and your ministers, and this is where I say we don't want to bite the hand that feeds us, but we want them to feed us. So I'm not going to go and say they're a terrible government. Doesn't matter what party it is. They're the government we're working with.
Yeah.
But equally, we have expectations, and they have to follow through. We literally are called the children.
Whoa, right? You've just pissed off so many municipal leaders.
But that's why I do
I
it,
know.
because we're given this derogatory, and I get where it comes from, and I joke about it all the time. So for everyone listening, I don't agree we're children, but that's the term, and I believe at that conference it was used against us, right? So
yeah.
So I would never not feed my child. Is what I'm getting to. So if you're going to call us the children of the state and the province, then feed us, because we have people in our municipalities that need and demand the services that we're not getting.
couldn't have said it better myself there, because I never really thought of it that way. You don't not feed your children, but if the province is looking at you as children, then step up and
step
start
up and
paying
feed
some
us,
of the
yeah.
bills, and stop downloading. You don't tell your 5-year-old children, here, you have to go pay your own grocery bills now. Go do it.
Right.
Like you feed your children.
You feed
Anyway,
your children, yeah.
I want to flip the script because I'm very cautious of time now.
Yeah.
And we have talked about some very macro issues.
Yeah.
And I, as you know,
Yeah.
as anyone who's listened to the show or has watched the show before know, I like to visit communities. We're here in Vermilion.
Yeah.
I just had lunch at Zane's, beautiful
Great restaurant.
bacon and cheese, cheddar burger with some great fries. And I overheard some conversations there. And I'm
Yeah.
one of those nosy people that likes to eavesdrop about what's going on in the municipality. Now, housing never came up in the conversation, but one thing did. Healthcare.
Yeah.
And I know that's passionate to you
Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
former
Yep.
EMS. Now, last time I checked, municipalities don't deal with healthcare issues.
Yeah.
But they are.
But they do. Yeah.
Doctor recruitment, doctor
Yeah.
shortages. When
Yeah.
your residents can't access an emergency room, they have to go to Lloydminster or Vegreville. That hurts your community.
Yeah.
What is your municipality doing to help address the healthcare issues
Mm-hmm.
within your community? Because from the conversations I heard,
Yeah.
I had to drive 3 hours to
Yeah.
go get my family doctor because I couldn't find one here.
Yeah.
That was the conversation.
Yeah.
Is that good for you?
No, absolutely, it's not good. And again, from that healthcare background, so I'm going to split in two. I'm going to talk about what our healthcare does, and then I'm going to give you my
for it.
my take. And I'm prefacing it. This is just my take. You did it all. You said all that already, so I
Yeah.
appreciate it. But this is just my take. So what are we doing? We have a healthcare retention committee, right? So it used to be doctor retention committee. We say healthcare because there is primary care networks. There's registered nurses, there's paramedics, we need them all.
Yeah.
Right? So what I've heard from our community is access to those resources is hard. Access to the greater resources in the cities are hard, and keeping doctors here is hard. So that committee looks at ways to help retain and keep those doctors and attract new ones, right? It's the province's responsibility to help us with that. As you already mentioned, they don't really do that, right? There's incentives, and we offer those incentives, and we try and be competitive, and we try and show it's a good place to live, right? Our logo talked about it. You were going to hit me on the logo.
I was
New
joking
ideas.
about it, but if you want to do it, go for it.
But essentially, it's a great place to live, right? And that's what we need to show and are trying to show doctors and nurses and paramedics. Here's why you should live here. Here's why you should invest in this community. And then we'll see that trickle over to our residents.
Are they
That's
hearing that, though?
the doctors. I'll stick to healthcare professionals.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. Could you do better?
Could we do better?
I know I'm asking a very political question here, but
so I'm going to flip now to my opinion.
Go for it.
Okay, instead of that's what the town's doing, and I
as
think
councillor, as
Robert
Robert
Snow,
the guy on the
as
street,
Robert Snow,
who's
the guy on the
potentially
street.
running for mayor.
We're sitting down for a coffee, and we're those people talking, and this is my take. Cash incentives don't work. I say it very bluntly when I'm out on the streets, and I know this gets some people frustrated. It's just bribery. That's the bottom line, in my opinion. We're saying, come to our community and we'll give you $10,000. And then 3 years later, another community says, we'll give you $20,000. And another. And so I've worked in this community as a paramedic for 22 years, just under 21 and 11 months to be exact, if anyone's counting the dates. And
there's one person saying, "Oh, he's the politician."
Typical politician, exaggerating your stories, like actually just mopped up in the hospital, right? No, but when I started, we had physicians and nurses that were here long term, and in fact, one of them's still here, and they raised their kids here. But that's the key. They came into the community, they bought in, they invested, they raised their family here. They got involved in clubs, in sports. They got involved in the schools, and they became part of the community, and they stayed. Flip it. Here's $10,000. We want you to come to our community to work. Cool. I'll take the $10,000. I've done no research on the community. I'm just taking the money. I don't believe that works. And I believe I can justify that by showing we don't offer financial incentives to nurses, to paramedics, to any other, and they stay. Why do they stay? Why do all the other healthcare professionals stay and we're not paying incentives? It's not a popular thing to be saying, especially in an election season, but it's not that I don't want those doctors. Our doctors, nurses, paramedics, chiropractors, the whole gambit, amazing human beings. They serve our community, and I'm very proud to have them, but we need them to want to be here. That's what's going to keep them here. And back to the town now, that's where I think the town is working towards. How do we, instead of just giving you money, how do we get you involved? And we have one great person. You are short on time. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just
making sure that
yeah,
I'm cautious.
okay.
I'm just
yeah,
making sure
I know.
I'm still recording.
Again, just tell me to stop. But we have one.
I find this conversation fascinating.
We have one great person on we have a bunch of great people on the committee. I shouldn't say one, but we have one of the members on the committee. He'll take the doctors kayaking on our river. It's a great park and great river. If you get a chance, check it out before you leave. He'll take the doctors' spouses for the driving lessons and when they're in town. We're trying to get them engaged and involved in our town. We'll take them to the pottery guild if that's what they want, or to the quilting guild, and show them why they want to be here, right? Because money's, there's always someone richer. And at the end of the day, if it comes down to money, where are they all going to end? Edmonton and Calgary. And then they're going to say, let's go to Vancouver and Toronto. So that's
they'll
that's
say, let's go down south.
And then they'll say, let's go down south. So I do get on a rant and a tangent about that because I believe in healthcare. Healthcare is so important, not only in our community. It's important for all of us. We all need it at some time, and we're all getting older. There's no fountain of youth. We need those supports, but we need them there when we need them. And that's how I think we got to get there.
So as we've mentioned at the top of this part of the show, you're running for mayor.
Yeah.
You've put your name forward to run for the next mayor of the town of Vermilion. We are, by the time this airs, 5 months away from the next municipal election in October 2020. Yeah, 5? Why? Why you? Why Robert Snow?
Man, can I be honest? Sometimes I ask myself that. Why me, right? The answer is why not, right? If, when we started, right? Why did we do what we do? Why did you do what you do? We have this intrinsic need to serve and to do something for our community. I felt I did a great job as a councillor. I'm going to go back. I'm going to jump around here. So I don't know if you know much about EMS. When I started, there's different levels. So there's EMR, EMT, paramedic. And paramedic was the highest advance, right? So I started out as an EMT. And I'd treat people and I'd help them. And every time I got to the hospital, I'd be like, I could probably have done just a little bit more. It's a whole Schindler's List thing, right? What else could I have done? And I was only an EMT for 2 years. I had to go become a paramedic because I knew as a paramedic I could do more. As a counselor, I can proudly say I have gone above and beyond with reaching out to our MLA, to ministers, to hitting those doors. I'm not the guy you'll see at every hockey game. That's not who I am, right? I appreciate my downtime and my private time, but when it's work day, you go to work so at the conferences and on the phone, I'm calling those people. And I think there'll be more impact if I'm saying I'm the mayor. And so I want to serve my community as mayor because I think I can actually get those doors opened a bit more.
So what does your vision of Vermilion look like at the end of 4 years if you were this successful candidate? Because hypothetically, and I'm one of these people that you never plan for 2 terms. You always plan for the first term because after 1 year, after 1 term, you might go, okay, this is enough.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
What would Vermilion look like under a Snow leadership?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of hearkening back to President Snow of the Hunger Games right now, and I'm not trying to make that good.
At least
analogy.
it wasn't Game of Thrones.
There you go. What does Vermilion look like under a mayoral Snow leadership that in 4 years' time you can look back and say, we've planted those trees to let it grow into shade for the future generations?
I think first and foremost, it gets back to our whole discussion about housing and having that plan. I'm very cognitive of governance and administration are two different things, but having good governance working with administration gets good plans. And we need to start having a plan that plans for 2050. And so that would be the first one. I'm not going to go through my whole campaign for you, but healthcare is huge. Essentially, the bottom line is, and again, this sounds very politician-like, but transparency and just ensuring that our community has a voice at the table with the province.
Now, I want to turn to my last subject.
Yeah.
You know it's my favorite subject. It's near and dear to my heart. You've already given me one great recommendation by saying, here are some restaurants you need to go to. I chose the very last one on the list because I'm one of those people that goes to the bottom of the list to go up. And I went to Zane's, and it was a great restaurant. Tourism is something that a lot of municipalities have, but we don't talk about it enough. We don't buy into it enough. Economic development goes hand in hand with tourism. What can people do? We are heading into the summer months. This is going to be heard across all of Canada and Western Canada on TV. Why should people come and visit Vermilion this summer?
I guess there's a bunch of reasons. Obviously, I want to just start by saying it's great, but I feel like everyone says that. We have a massive infrastructure in our provincial park, like tons of trails. Becky Scott, the Olympic gold medalist with cross country skiing. I can remember if it's biathlon as well or whatever the other one is.
I would have just went with the Olympian Becky Scott.
I should have. See, I told you sometimes pineapple. So we have an extensive trail system in our park. We have a beautiful river. Downtown, we have a great shop that has kayaks and bikes, and they set people up so you can go kayaking on our river. And the food, I really hope we become a foodie town, but we're getting there. Like, we have a cheesery shop that internationally known. They sell their cheese in Europe, and they sell it on airlines. KLM, I believe they're in. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what I heard.
I like how you said, don't quote me on that, on a show.
That's quoting me on that. Anyway, is that like a politician 101 don't do? Okay, I told you I wasn't a good politician. But we have the bistro downtown. We have a bunch of restaurants downtown, quaint shops downtown. We've really, and when I say we, our economic development department has really done a great job working with our community to make a quaint downtown. We put in the brick sidewalks and the cobblestone intersection, and it just has that quaint feel. So people bring in their RVs coming down. We even have a trout pond. I have never caught a trout in there, but I know they're there because they mock me with my fishing rod. But it's just a great place to get away. People don't think, we'll go to Vermilion for the weekend, but that they really should, because it's not far from the Edmonton, and it's a great place to go. The food's great. As you can see, I enjoy it. So
I'm very picky. As you can
and lots of different clubs, lots of different events going on. Our fair is renowned in this neck of the woods. Like, we have our population quadruples or something stupid like that. Like 26,000 people come into our fair.
On the back door of your community, and I think it's in the community boundaries, if I'm not mistaken, you have one of probably the biggest draws, and that is Lakeland College.
It's when a community our size has an extensive college. Right? From obviously the agro, there's a lot of agriculture there.
And it's the hub for firefighters. I actually had a privilege of teaching there years ago for the EMS side. They teach everything from youth and childcare to all the trades, electrical, carpentry, mechanical. Like, our population grows during the school year, right? Like, I feel like there's around 700 in the campus in Vermilion. But just when you step back and you think, like, Olds is roughly 10,000 people, and they got a college. Are they 10,000? I was going to say probably about just under 10,000.
Yeah.
For the mayor who's about to send me a message, I apologize. I might be wrong.
I apologize for bringing up Olds, and I actually love Olds. It's a great place. It is. I actually go through there quite a bit, but we have a great college, right? And that brings in college people, that brings in a lot of younger folks, which also brings in a good vibe in our community,
Yeah.
right? Like obviously we respect elderly people and the folks that are here, and we're really glad they're here, and we want a good blend. But having a college community does bring in that younger, youthful vibe. And you can see it because when you go down to the park, there's people hiking and biking. And when you go downtown, you can see people going into the different shops. And it's a good feel, right? It kind of goes back to our comments of why should developers come here? That was probably the best answer.
The college.
The college.
My final question
'Kay.
for you. Actually, I'm gonna. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say let's go, continue on. If we have to go a little bit over,
'Kay.
I'm assuming my people will not be upset with me.
Okay, my
because
people won't be
there
upset
you
either.
go. Where do you go
Where do I go?
after a long day? Because I can imagine those council meetings are stressful. And I'm gonna sort of preface this before I say this.
Yeah.
You cannot say your house. You have to say somewhere in your community where you can go and decompress after a long day, whether it
Okay.
be work, whether it be
Yeah.
being with family, not that they're ever
Yeah.
stressful, or whether it be at council meetings.
So I have to preface then too, I love you to my wife because home should be the answer. You know what? There's a few things I do. I'm going to start with the commercial side of it. Copper Cork. They have a distillery in town, and they sling a fabulous old fashioned. I don't know if you enjoy old fashions, but smoked old fashioned. But just the ambience in there, right? It's I wouldn't say it's your typical pub or bar. It's just relax. You can just go and decompress. So it's it doesn't hurt that it's across the alley from my actual place of employment outside of council. Is this where I say pineapple? Okay.
No.
And so, but the other side, and this is probably the majority of it, is though this physique doesn't look like it, I do like to hop on my mountain bike. Years ago, being on the ambulance, I did have some mental health stuff, so I do have a dog that gives me a little bit of support. So the dog and the bike, we get out to the park and just hit those hills, and it's nothing better than going for a run. I don't run, a bike ride with my dog. My dog runs, but that's a large part of it, right?
Peaceful.
And then the other one is I'd mentioned I do photography, so I just love going into the park. You know, we've had some bears in there in the
Okay,
past.
this is my own personal question.
Yeah.
Nikon, Canon.
Canon.
Oh, man,
Are you a
after
Canon? Yeah, good man. Yeah, Canon was oh my goodness, 5D.
Oh,
Mark IV.
Nice.
Mark III. Sorry.
So I have my last question for you now. Now it's my last question.
Yeah.
It's the $1 million question.
Okay.
So you can pause and take your time to answer this, or you can answer it as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
But I think you know how to answer it. I think
Okay.
every municipal leader knows how to answer
Yeah.
this question, which, if you listen to the show, you know what the question is.
Okay.
What makes Vermilion such a unique place to live,
Yeah.
to work, and to raise a family?
Yeah, I feel like the answer is probably not that unique, but community. You know what? Like I said, 25 years ago, just under 25 years for the people that are checking, I moved my family here, and I never once had to worry about my son playing out in the streets, right? I never had to worry about a strange car going by. I remember the time a strange car did go by and wasn't noticed, and maybe people say this is a little bit of fear in our community. It's not. It's this community pulling together. But stranger comes in our street, my neighbor is outside playing with my son, right? Because my neighbor saw the car and I didn't, and said, his boy's got to play outside, so I'm just going to go out there with him, right? And just tying together, you know, my other life is a world of nonprofit, and seeing this community come together to support nonprofits, like I can't express enough how much this community pulls together when it's tough times. You know, we have our differences. We're not all going to see eye to eye, but when it comes push to shove, the community stands beside each other. Obviously, there's great amenities, there's great things to do, but I'd say that's the takeaway for me.
Robert, Councillor, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
doing
very
this.
much for
This has
having
been
me.
An honest to goodness pleasure.
Yeah.
I feel like we just scratched the
I
surface.
feel like we could go on for a few more hours.
I feel like part two is on the
I'm
on
looking
the
forward
horizon.
to it. Yeah, I'm
Thanks
looking
so
forward to
much.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of municipalities here in beautiful Canada. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or by visiting us on YouTube or following us on all the social media channels. Now, if you want to learn more about the communities and the people that we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode if you can with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we're back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews shortly. Till then, everyone.